Hello, everybody. Welcome to Front Page Fitness. I am Eric Trexler, joined as always by the Dr. Lauren Colenso-Semple, as seen on TV. It is true, folks. Don't be struck. We got her. Notable Canadian TV star Lauren Colenso-Semple is here. Lauren, how are you doing?
I'm great. There was pretty good feedback, some negative feedback, but mostly positive.
Yeah. Let's start, as always, with the negative. What could you be doing better?
Okay, so the question really is which of these is meaner because one happened pre-TV appearance and one happened post. The pre-negative feedback was from my stepmother-in-law. My husband said, "Oh, Lauren's going to be on The Social. This is a great show in Canada. Everyone knows about it." And she says, "Well, we all have our 15 minutes of fame or shame."
Yeah, and generally, I suppose true. I think
Very confidence boosting for me going into this experience.
yeah, because it's the thing I like the most about it as someone who enjoys putting you down is it wasn't just like, well, like I'm gonna dismiss your opportunity here, which the way it's been billed to me is like the Canadian version of The View. Like this is a show with a large viewership and cultural significance. It wasn't just saying like, yeah, well, everybody's got something, so like get over yourself. But it was also like, it could be shame though. Like this could be,
It could go really poorly.
yeah, this could actually be, not only does it not matter, but it actually could matter in a very negative way. So
Right.
with that being said, do you feel as if this was more of a 15 minutes of fame, a 15 minutes of shame, or a 15 minutes of filling time on a program?
I feel like it was a very positive experience. Everyone there was really cool. It was hectic because you have to be so concise and they wanted to cover a lot. So it was challenging because I'm used to longer form content like this where we can talk a lot and give a lot of details. But I think it went well, and like I said, most of the feedback was really positive and the experience was good, but there's always a troll. So shout out to Frankie on YouTube who said the following. They need a real menopause expert on here. She had some good advice, but doesn't have a lot of knowledge on the things she was asked about, like creatine and cycle syncing. Creatine is more than just for building muscles. It's often used for the mental benefits too. And even if you don't fully cycle sync, it's pretty common sense to honor your body during different phases and maybe not do your most intense workout when your body is shedding. Still move, but adjust to where your body is. Also, lots of research is coming out about how intermittent fasting is actually not as good for females, especially those in perimenopause, as it is for men due to the stress it can cause on the body. Takeaway, she gives a whole lot of nothing. Also, she looked pretty bitchy the entire time, not good at delivering a message.
They lost me until the last part, and then they won me over. Hard to refute. Um, is that something you've gotten a lot in your life?
Actually, yes. Once I was working at a restaurant. I don't know if it was the end of high school or maybe beginning of college. And the management was really mad at me for not smiling enough. And eventually I got fired from said waitressing job because I wasn't, appearing like I was having a good enough time. Which feels like an unfair reason to fire someone looking
Yeah, it
back.
also feels like there's not a lot of people who just kind of like wake up in the morning and they're like, two things I want to do today. Number one, stand at the host table of a restaurant and just enjoy the vibes. Number two, bring food to people at their table. Like those are kind of the two main things you might be doing in there. So I'm on your side of maybe not thinking it was the necessarily the most fun way to spend your 6 hours or 8 hours that day.
And maybe my average face looks bitchy. That's not something that I can control. So, deepest apologies to Frankie. I'll try to change my face next time.
Yeah. And also your content. Change your content and your
Right.
face. And once you change both of those, then everything will be
And
solid.
learn more because apparently I don't know anything about any of the topics that we discussed.
Yeah. Well, hey, you listen. You flew too close to the sun. You learned your lesson. You gave it a shot. Unfortunately, as is always the case, mother-in-law's right. So now you get to crawl back, hat in hand, and tell her you were right, I was wrong, and I'm done with my 15 minutes of shame.
Right.
Correct. Other than that, things good.
Things are good.
Wonderful. I got my own share of trolling this week on the internet, so uh, not exactly an all-time high for the Front Page Fitness crew. We're taking arrows from all angles. Our enemies want us to feel pain, and yet we push forward, and we always
Bitchy
will.
face and all.
Absolutely. You do look a little more like a snake today. What was was it the snake tongue?
Snake tongue. Yes.
Yeah. The snake tongue is definitely in full force, but nonetheless, we will push forward and try to do some science. I want to give a quick shout out to the numerous people. Again, I don't want to give a number because I don't want to make all of our competitors and haters feel bad, but just a live chat teeming with individuals coming in from all over the place, including Virginia, New Zealand, and presumably places between Virginia and New Zealand. So shout out to the people joining us live in the chat. Lauren, let's dig into some science here. And what better way to dig into science than to start out with, I'm just going to say it, a very cool burrito. So I'm gonna show this on the screen, and we're gonna hope. Now, Lauren hooked me up with some kind of top secret ad blocking technologies. So I hope that my browser won't collapse every time I try to show something on my screen. So up here we see this lovely product from weodiet.com. Now, if you're looking at my screen like I am, you're seeing a delicious egg, ham, and bacon breakfast burrito. And you're looking at it, you see these delicious fluffy bits of scrambled egg, beautiful diced ham, little bits of bacon, some tomato and pepper, kind of like a Southwest omelet type deal. And if you are a very observant person, you're seeing 133 calories listed next to this burrito. And you're thinking, what is this, an ant-sized burrito? How could this be? Well, Lauren, someone sent this to me on Instagram, and I was very, legitimately, Lauren, confused. Not skeptical, just downright. I had to literally ask them, what am I looking at? What are you showing me? I don't understand. Because I look at the ingredients, and it says eggs, Wio flour tortillas, and I'm like, okay, flour, maybe it's made out of weird stuff, but it just says eggs, then Wio flour, then potato, cheese, bacon, ham. I know what these things are, Lauren. I
0 grams of fat sounds highly unlikely.
yeah, I know vaguely what potato is made out of. It's mostly potato by weight. Bacon is made of bacon. Ham is made of ham. And I'm looking at the label here. It says 133 calories, 0 grams fat. I think it says 5 net carbs.
It
28.
just says 5 grams of carbs. It doesn't even specify net, actually.
Well, I'm looking down at the
at the full nutrition.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
getting into the details here, and then 28 grams of protein. So, oh my God, a delicious, beautiful 270 gram burrito that is giving you 28 grams of protein, no fat, and 5 net carbs. Sign me up, right? So,
Sure.
I was just absolutely dumbfounded, and then I said, "Well, wait a minute. This is presented like a nutrition facts label, right? Like you'd find on the back of a packaged food product. But at the top, I realized it says, Lauren, digestive facts. This is not something I normally see on the back of a packaged food. And that piqued my interest. And I said, what in the world could that possibly mean? And where are the good old fashioned, nutrition facts? And so, if you go to this hidden tab that I actually just struggled live on air to find it, even though I've been there before, it says, oh, by the way, if you'd like to see the nutrition packs before we insert our natural carb and fat blockers, if that's something that interests you, for academic reasons, not that it matters, expand this tab and you can access that. And then you say, oh, so this is a 556 calorie burrito with 27 grams of fat and 53 grams of carbohydrate, which sounds more like a burrito that's full of potato and bacon and ham. So, Lauren, the deal is here that they basically have taken the latitude to say, we put in our special proprietary carb and fat blockers. So don't worry about the fat and the carbs. We are going to give you an alternative label, which makes you feel a lot better and has essentially no calories other than the protein. So, Lauren, how do you feel? How many have you ordered? And what's the verdict on the taste test? Because I'm sure you sprinted out and got a case.
I mean, I think this burrito looks objectively gross, but I'll put that aside to just dig into the natural fat inhibitor. Sorry. What is that? What's happening?
Did they list it like what the actual ingredient is, or like the specific fat block? Because this is like, so for some context, this is a thing that has been done before. People have gotten into this idea of like blocking fat absorption, and generally speaking, it tends not to go well. Basically, when you're talking about inhibiting the absorption, the literal absorption of fat from the diet, I don't want to be graphic, Lauren, but there's only two things that can happen. Number one is it doesn't work and you absorb the fat. Number two is it does somehow work, and now you are eliminating oil essentially from your body. Oil, notably not the consistency that you want your stool to be, probably transits the gut at a different rate than your typical stool. And so you can use your imagination and think through how that might go in terms of the subjective experience of just allowing oils to simply pass through your GI tract at an alarming rate. Needless to say, you don't see a lot of people doing the whole fat blocker thing anymore. With carb blockers, you could get into the nitty gritty science about it and say, like, are there things that can maybe partially inhibit the uptake at the intestine of carbohydrate? Maybe to varying degrees, but you didn't just wake up 700 years later. It is still the fact that we can't just like sprinkle a few things in food and say, yeah, this is just a protein now. Don't worry about all the other stuff. You're good. So that's an oversimplification of the work that has been done in the food science field to try to buffer or attenuate or block the absorption of some of these macronutrients. But so far, it's basically gone one of two ways. One is they don't work at all. Number two is they work, but not enough to really matter. And then number three is, oh, they work. And then you are just like, I'm good with the regular stuff. I don't want to live this way.
So I looked up their carbohydrate enzyme inhibitor, which is an herbal supplement used to treat conditions such as hemorrhoids, bone loss, allergies, asthma, and diabetes.
Well, there you go. What more do you need? I will say, I was Googling around about this particular, not this product, but just this brand. And there were a lot of very concerned people with diabetes who basically said, and I'm laughing because it's so absurd that a company would roll the dice on this. But there's a lot of people with diabetes, Lauren, who you'd be amazed actually said like, hey, I took this because I have diabetes and I carefully manage my blood sugar. And I got a very large blood sugar spike after eating this 5 carbohydrate, what is it? A breakfast burrito. So does anyone know why I might have had a massive spike in blood sugar after this? And, and people were very candid in expressing skepticism about the efficacy of the carb blocker.
Yeah. This kind of reminds me of when people started eating sugar-free candy, and so you're eating, jelly beans or gummy bears, and it's sugar-free, and that never goes well for your digestive system either.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, don't
Yeah,
do it. Skip
those
it.
sugar-free gummy bears and sugar-free chocolate, for example. The first time I ever had
Yeah.
sugar-free chocolate, I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe no one found out about this except me. This is incredible." It honestly tasted exactly the same, had really good texture. I was like, "We did it. Like all of our problems are solved." And then like an hour later, I was like, never mind. I'll take I'll take every ramification that comes with the real chocolate. This was one of the worst mistakes of my life. Because honestly, Lauren, like I'm not even joking about this. Those kinds of foods, which usually have large amounts of sugar alcohols in them, and specifically, I think the one that they use for sugar-free chocolate to get the right texture is maltitol. I could be throwing an extra T in there maybe, but all the different sugar alcohols have slightly different characteristics, and some are worse or better in terms of working as a laxative or maybe making you bloated and gassy. But the one that they use for sugar-free chocolate and for sugar-free gummy bears, those are just pure laxatives, straight up, 100%. And I really believe, Lauren, that they need to put warning labels on those. And I'm serious. Like I have never. It's like you essentially have given yourself food poisoning if you just eat them to your heart's content. And you're not actually ill, but you are experiencing fully the ramifications of very severe food poisoning in terms of how you're feeling. So, if elected, Lauren, as the next congressman, governor, and/or president of my jurisdictions, whether we're talking local, state, or federal, that would probably be my first piece of legislation. Is we got to put warnings on these things. So
Yeah.
Lauren, the moral of the story is there's no such thing as a calorie-free lunch or breakfast in this case for now. We're just not there yet. So I encourage people to practice some skepticism. I do agree with you, Lauren, that a lot of times food companies will try to like they'll do weird stuff. Like I've heard that the food you see in commercials it's not actually made out of food in many cases.
Yeah.
Like I've heard that like ice cream is sometimes made out of like mashed potatoes or something. I don't know. There's all sorts of weird stuff where they'll use different things that just look more like a picture perfect food on screen. I think they went a little overboard. I'm going to put it back up on the screen here. This breakfast burrito, it's like they tried to make each ingredient look so pristine and fresh that it doesn't look like a good meal. That's kind of, I want to see some cheese amongst the whole situation. I need to see something that looks a little bit more palatable. So I'm with you, Lauren. I think they missed an opportunity on the photography of the food, and I'm not going to make any bold claims, Lauren. I'm going to call balls and strikes. I call it how I see it. If I were eating this, and if I were doing some kind of calorie tracking, which I'm not, I'd probably put it more for like 560 calories than 133. But that's just me. And now I will
Right.
say a bold thing that to be taken very seriously. If you have diabetes, treat this as if it has like 60 carbs. Do not go with the 5 number. I implore you.
Have you seen Is It Cake on Netflix?
I've not seen it, but I'm familiar with the genre of cake related content.
So they create a cake, but it looks like a boot or a suitcase or something that is not food related. Actually, sometimes it is food related. Sometimes it's like a burger and fries, but it's cake. It's actually really impressive. But anyway, this is sort of that in reverse because they're taking non food elements and putting it together to craft what is supposed to be a burrito, but looks like a kind of weird AI generated, just, I don't know, something.
Yeah. Or it could be cake,
It could be cake. You never know.
which would be even tougher for the macros. So
We got Bulgaria and Brazil in the chat.
it's a worldwide affair, folks.
Yes.
Love to see it. I will say this whole thing does lend itself to a broader narrative. Lauren, we're both quite old. I'm old. we're both old. We're washed up. We had our 15 minutes of shame, and now we're past it. But we're old enough to remember when in the fitness world, everybody was doing the. I've seen like 7 generations of low calorie ice cream come and go. I think the first
Oh
one was
yeah.
Arctic Zero. Was that the first one that got big?
That was so bad. It was like icy. And then Halo Top came out and Halo Top was actually
Yeah.
pretty good texture wise. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was a time when I was about 18 to 20 when everybody was going all in on these, like, we're gonna make the low calorie high protein ice cream that everyone's gonna love, or the low calorie high protein brownies or cookies, and it felt like 4 out of every 5 products that got big was just 1 year away from the bombshell discovery that it was just a brownie. Like it was just, they said, hey guys, I got bad news. We've been selling you cookies. I know we said that they had like 40 calories, but they just had like the normal like 400 calories for that big old cookie. So sorry
Yeah,
about
at
that.
least like the protein Pop Tarts and the protein Doritos, at least they're doing it honestly these days.
Yeah, yeah. Like it would have been better if, the company would say like, hey, here's a giant cookie, and instead of 4 grams of protein, it has 8. So have at it. But no,
Right.
we're both old enough to have been duped on many occasions, or to have seen people get duped. Where yeah, this whole kind of thing, I immediately just say like, you know what, I'll just go with a lower calorie burrito. And when I say lower calorie, it's like maybe I'll do a little more egg white instead of full egg. Maybe drop the ham and bacon, put some more veggies in it. The old fashioned way, Lauren. I don't know how many more times we have to learn that lesson as a fitness world, but apparently one more. We'll keep going. All right. Lauren, speaking of sausage, you ready to move on?
Sure.
All right. So your headline that you gave me here, per the New York Post, not to be confused with the New York Times. As I've learned, I was doing some Googling this weekend, Lauren. Did you know those are two fundamentally separate publications?
I've been trying to explain that to you for 10 months.
And to the best of my knowledge, they're not even part of a shared ownership group. I
They
believe
are
that these
not.
are separate entities that publish two fundamentally different websites and papers. So this one is from the New York Post. Equivalent newspapers for sure, but slightly different. So the headline here, with my new ad blockers shining, it says, I was squeezed like a sausage inside a human upgrade center where biohackers optimize their bodies. So I'm going to scroll through here. Lauren, if you want to give a quick summary, I'm just going to show people these pictures of people who are, it looks like they're in kind of compression vacuum spacesuits with red laser beams shining at their face. We've got Dave Asprey there. And I will say, Dave's in good shape. I got to give him that. Who knows if it's the blue blocker glasses, if it's these red laser beams in his face, but he is in good shape. So you got to give credit where credit's due. And it says the caption here, Lauren, Asprey uses biohacking to help him live to 180. I don't know. Listen, Lauren, I am not going to criticize the New York Post. I just won't do it. But I think that caption is a little misleading. I read that as a direct quote. Asprey uses biohacking to help him live to 180. I feel like somewhere they should have implied that this was an aspiration.
Right. He's not actually 180 years old.
They kind of are presenting that as a matter of fact, like, hey, have you wondered how Dave looks so good at 180? It's because he's doing biohacking. So I would offer up some edits for that part of the article. But Lauren, what is going on here, and have you booked a session?
So I have not, but next time we are in Austin, maybe we should. Human Upgrade Lab sounds like something that is for robots. It doesn't really sound like a place I'm comfortable going. But I think $189 a month, and you can use this strange lymphatic draining massage thing where you're kind of in this big compression chamber bodysuit that applies pressure for, I think it was 40 minutes. Doesn't sound very comfortable or pleasant. And then you're getting your red light therapy. You have obviously your cryo chambers, and then there's maybe the weirdest one, which is breath work. So you're kind of wearing a mask, and then you are focusing on breathing for 40 minutes. So it sounds like you have to be here for at least 5 hours. Um, which I guess, maybe if you're going daily, then $189 actually isn't that bad.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was going to say $189. I was expecting with kind of some of the more gimmicky elements and just the hardware, the equipment they have on hand, I would have expected it to be a higher price. Please do not misinterpret that as me implying value. what I'm what I am suggesting is relative to the norm for this kind of thing. That is to me surprisingly affordable. Maybe they lock you into like a 75-year contract. So then they're like, yeah, 189 a year for the rest of eternity. And they probably do. Honestly, they probably set it up where they're like, listen, Dave's 180 years old. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put you in the Gold Star Elite package. So it's going to be $189 until you reach the age of 180 because we want you to be fully bought in for the long haul. And if by some chance you die before then, maybe a freak accident, you get hit by a truck. I mean, stuff happens, plane crash. You're not going to die of heart disease. You're not going to die of diabetes. You're not going to die of a chronic disease between now and then. But if something weird happens, then the remainder of what's due, we just take that from your estate. I think that's probably how they structure the contract. That's how I would do it. But I will say there's a lot going on here. That's 5 hours to take a spin through the whole cycle seems a bit excessive. I'm looking at the breath work. They're saying that they're cycling between high and low oxygen levels, which the way they put it is gives you an aerobic workout just by breathing. I don't think you're going to get the kind of low oxygen exposure you need to get the kind of adaptations they're looking for. Usually, Lauren, back in the day, and still, I don't know why I said back in the day, for all instances of time, people have enjoyed the benefits of altitude when trying to induce various aerobic adaptations. But usually what you do is you go live up at high altitude and then you train at low altitude. And there's all sorts of mixing and matching. But for certain, you want to spend substantial amounts of time at altitude with the low partial pressure of oxygen because you need a fairly substantial dose. You need a substantial exposure of that low oxygen partial pressure to actually induce these adaptations.
And it usually makes you feel pretty bad.
Yeah, until you adapt to it, it makes you feel quite bad. But yeah, the absolute worst thing, and sometimes people mess this up. Usually people who have no guidance and are trying to do it on their own, but they'll be living at they'll be living at a low altitude and then just go do their workouts at high altitude. So it's you don't really get the adaptations and now all your workouts suck. I got a little confused. I don't know if you saw, Lauren. I was absolutely taken aback because even with this pristine ad blocker you got me, which is good, for some reason New York Post was feeding me a video. It's got a slideshow, a never-ending cycle of videos, and there's just me watching an armed robbery with some really serious guns on my screen. So I wish that your ad blocker would somehow redo the New York Post website so I wasn't being confused by what looked like a military operation as an armed robbery.
Yeah, that's probably gonna be flagged by YouTube.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not visible. This is just on my screen.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
just
so
for you.
We are not showing that to the kids.
So my mom is doing this multi-week hiking trip in Nepal.
Okay.
And there's a lot of hiking at higher altitudes, and so she's been the other day she got so sick that she needed to be assisted back down the mountain.
Yeah.
And everybody on the trip has diarrhea because they all got some kind of food poisoning, or maybe it was the water, who knows. You kind of sign up for that when you go to that part of the world. So the vacation sounds bad.
Yeah, but the nice thing about vacations in memory, Lauren, is that she's going to have a terrible time, objectively bad, right? But then in a few years, she'll look back and be like, what a beautiful trip that was. I feel like for me, my memory always has a way of smoothing that stuff over. So We'll just give it time, and it'll feel like a
Right.
beautiful, lovely trip eventually. So, Lauren, was there anything on this whole menu that piqued your interest, or did this just look like a good way to waste a few hours and a couple $100?
Yeah, I wonder if the way they make money is by making each experience so long and so uncomfortable and so boring that you just never want to go back, but you've already paid your monthly fee.
Yeah. A lot of the bigger gyms, that's their model, is to sign up people and hope they never come. So
Right.
that could definitely be what's going on here. I have a more charitable view. What if they lock you into this like 5 hour sequence of testing and like they say, oh, come in, get it done really frequently. And then it's like you lose weight just because you spent like 5 or 6 hours of your day just without access to food. It's like I was so busy, getting cryo frozen and pumped full of pressurized suits and, with red laser beams in my face. And I couldn't even get a bite to eat. Like I was just too busy.
So maybe it is a weight loss hack.
Maybe so. The one of the nice things about how like, and by the way, someone mentioned in the comments, Dave Asprey is officially like, as far as I know, the original butter and coffee guy, like the bulletproof
Yeah.
coffee thing. So he kind of started with that, to the best of my knowledge, and spun off into like literally every corner of biohacking you could possibly get into. But he's like the godfather of biohacking, for all intents and purposes. But one of the nice things about biohacking getting big and them embracing like these cold plunges and like sauna and stuff like that is, there's a place that opened up near me that I actually thought about joining. I didn't, but I thought about it, because it's basically, it's it's advertised as this kind of like health wellness thing, but it's basically like, yeah, we got like a cold plunge and like all sorts of saunas and steam rooms and hot tubs, and like to me that just sounds like a lovely spa day. I was like, I could get in on that, just because I enjoy a good sauna, a good steam room, a good hot tub. So that stuff is getting more accessible, both in terms of like those kind of places, but also I don't know if you've looked, but you can actually get some saunas to put in your home that actually are not that crazy expensive. I don't really like them as much because they're the infrared saunas, so the it doesn't get as hot within the sauna, which is kind of what I'm in it for. But nonetheless, like it's cool that like sauna I think is just a nice relaxing thing, and anything that allows pressure to get those prices down and access up, I'm actually into. So I don't think that this whole thing is necessarily a worthwhile investment, but I am hereby calling on more biohacker people to put more low cost sauna and hot tub experiences in my area. That is an official challenge to biohackers. Lauren, how do you feel about saunas, cold plunges, hot tubs? Do you enjoy any of that stuff?
I'll do it, but I would never be on the list of things that I would think, oh, I need to have this access to do this regularly.
I honestly think this is something I may do if I get old enough and grumpy enough, and I finally say I'm just done with people. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to move someplace very cold, preferably near mountains, and I'm just going to be in the sauna and the hot tub as much of the day as I can without dying. To me that is like a perfect day. Is It's super cold and snowy outside. I'm in the mountains, but I'm all cozy in like a hot tub or a sauna. You can't beat that. So I think ultimately what's going to happen, Lauren, is at some point between now and the age 180 for me, I'm going to just lose it and say I'm withdrawing from society. I'm going to move to a small shed in northern Finland or northern Norway, about 100 miles away from anybody, and that's going to be my day to day.
The chat is rightly calling you out for being bought out by Big Sauna.
I just like saunas.
Mm.
I'm sorry, I don't claim any massive health benefits. I just find it to be very relaxing. Uh, there's something nice about getting a good sweat in without having to do all the work. What could be better? All right, Lauren, are we done with our wellness spa? Are we ready to move on to some hard hitting science about creatine?
Oh, after we look at what is the new weighted vest.
Oh God. Okay, you want to do that one first? Yeah.
I do. Let's just get all of the fuckery out of the way, and then we'll talk about creatine and menopause.
This is like pure insanity.
I
I'm
can't.
stunned. So I'm going to put this on the screen. We are looking at Kilo Gear. It's a woman in a sports bra with a tennis racket. And it's an advertisement, also known as an advertisement, of what they call the women's micro weighted performance bra. This is a $79 bra. Lauren, how's that in the bra world? I haven't bought one lately. Is that a?
Actually, it's an additional cost once you purchase your weights
Oh, okay. Yeah,
to
I
insert
should
into
get.
the bra.
Of course. Is that not the norm for all bras? Are there some bras that are not weighted? Yeah. So if you want to get it fully weighted with two weights, that's an additional $25. That's going to set you back. Or you
And
could.
this is only one of many options. They've got weighted shorts, weighted leggings, weighted tank tops.
Yeah. And so the weights.
They're going all in on weighted clothing.
Yeah, it looks like you can wear up to 2 pounds, but if you want to start smaller, you can go with the single pack of micro weights and wear only 1 pound in your bra. Lauren, I remember a time where I was made to believe that women who had very large chests would often suggest that it was very cumbersome and that they were interested in breast reduction surgery because of all sorts of back pain and things of this nature. So am I really to believe that a new thing is just adding additional weight into your bra?
And they're claiming that it integrates wearable resistance directly into your upper body, helping you build strength, burn more calories, and move with power in every rep, run, or drill.
And how do you feel about that?
Nobody wants this product.
Well, okay.
This should be outright rejected by women all over the world. Bras and sweating is a thing. And adding weights to the bra is going to make the whole thing sweatier. This sounds uncomfortable. And what is the logic here other than the fact that they're borrowing it from the weighted vest nonsense? Like, we're gonna put 2 pounds in the back of our bra and say, this is a fitness hack.
Okay, I will say this. I need to issue a retraction and an apology. I didn't realize, I guess I didn't think about it. Pardon me. My imagination was not nimble enough to know exactly how I would design a 2 pound weighted bra. I didn't think about where the weight would go. It looks like it's going in the back by the shoulder blades. I'm assuming that would be less burdensome with regards to like upper back pain and things of that nature. And yet, Lauren, you still raise valid points. I just can't imagine how we fell so far where we've gotten to the point now. It was one thing to say maybe if I strap like a 20, 30, 40 pound vest on my body, something will happen. And we've talked ad nauseum about how we're not really that into weighted vests, to put it lightly. You're essentially you have a whole second job as just being a weighted vest hater to any journalist who's writing about it that week. But now we're just talking about, well, what if I just put like 1 pound on my, it's like, at a certain point,
Well, a couple
it's like,
weeks ago, we had the leggings with the built-in resistance bands that were going to help us burn an extra 300 calories per day, theoretically.
yeah, when I was a kid, we would talk about like, what about in the future when you can just wear an exoskeleton that makes you more powerful and now we're just going the other direction. We're like, what if I put on an exoskeleton that just makes activities of daily living slightly harder? Like, what if I have resistance blocking my ability to lift my leg because of my pants that I'm wearing, and for no reason at all, I'm just carrying an extra 2 pounds in my bra? So yeah, now when you said, Lauren, that no one wants this, I'm going to push back or at least encourage you to elaborate. Do you believe that's true, that no one wants this? Or is it possible that no one should want this, and yet people do?
I would be, I mean, I guess maybe I'm putting too much faith in humanity.
Always a risky
Can people
choice.
be duped into thinking this is a good idea? I mean, maybe, but come on. Uh,
I
what?
I will admit, can I admit to something stupid?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, like, adolescent to like early teenage years, I was just way too obsessed with fitness and training and sports and stuff. It didn't make any sense. And so, like, when Christmas would come around, I would ask for like training aids. I'd be like, ooh, this will be like, I wouldn't ask for fancy gadgets or anything. It was just like, what can I use? Like, I'd ask for like an agility ladder for when I go out and like do workouts on the field. And one year, because I was very young and didn't understand how anything worked in my body, and certainly not like coordination and neuromuscular function, I asked for like football wide receiver gloves that had weights around the wrists. And I was like, imagine how good my hands would be if for some reason I made them better by lugging weights around on my wrists. And now that I'm older, I want to get back that 24.99 more than I want anything else in the world, because I was absolutely duped. So at the end of the day, I do not believe I can actually judge anyone for falling for weighted accessories, although I can only do my part, Lauren, in trying to prevent them. I'm just trying to guard them. And what used to be $24.99 for a pair of gloves is now, what are we looking at? $105 for the fully loaded bra. So we got to get out there and protect the consumers, Lauren.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on the weighted clothing phenomena, or should we move on to creatine?
Let's move on.
Let's do. Up on the screen, we see, first of all, a notice that the government is shut down, so PubMed is officially unreliable and out of date. We'll scroll past that. now we see a study from the Journal of the American Nutrition Association in 2025, a recent study looking at the effects of creatine hydrochloride and ethyl ester supplementation for cognition, clinical outcomes, brain creatine levels in perimenopausal and menopausal women. So, Lauren, I'm going to be very stupid first here, just clarifying. Perimenopausal, I assume that means you're going through the menopause transition, and then menopausal means you have gone through menopause. Is this like being in it
That's
versus being past it?
they should have said post-menopausal.
Okay. But that's
But
generally,
menopause is a moment in time,
yeah.
and so your peri or so they should have said
Your pre, your
peri
peri,
and
or your
post.
post, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, Lauren, was this the one I think you might have said privately? And I'm always comfortable sharing your private thoughts publicly without your permission. I think you said this was one that people were kind of misinterpreting all over the place. Is that true, or is that a different one?
Well, people are definitely excited about this. There's a lot of chatter about this. So a lot of people asked, are you going to weigh in on this study? What do you think? Because there's been a big push to talk about the cognitive benefits of creatine, or the potential cognitive benefits of creatine. And I think we talked about it a while ago, just sort of cautioning about the fact that this had been studied in these clinical populations, people with some sort of a deficit, the traumatic brain injury patients, the Alzheimer's patients, those who were diagnosed with major depressive disorders. So, but people are still kind of hypothesized that this could be uniquely beneficial for perimenopausal women. And this is one of the first trials to actually measure it in peri and postmenopausal women. So it's definitely getting a lot of attention. They used creatine hydrochloride because this is an industry funded study. Okay. And so the company that provided the supplements is the formula that they are selling, and they also have this creatine ethyl ester. So if we just want to go through what they did here, they divided the the 36 women into 4 groups. So you have 9 per group, and that's a lower dose creatine hydrochloride, a medium dose, a placebo, and then a creatine hydrochloride plus creatine ethyl ester. And that to me was such a waste. They just really tanked their statistical power by having 4 groups. I don't know why they threw that ethyl ester group in, because it just sort of overcomplicated the study. So you end up with 9 per group, and they measured a lot of outcomes after 8 weeks of supplementation, well, before and after 8 weeks of supplementation. So they did a various kind of batteries of cognitive function tests. Some of and there are many subsets of outcomes kind of within each of those tests, and they found significant differences in some groups for some of those kind of sub outcomes of these tests. And then they measured creatine levels in the brain, but only in 4 people per group. So they really were not powered to detect between group differences for that outcome.
I gotta say, Lauren, I am very confused, and I mean that in a genuine way. Um, so, there has been prior literature, Lauren, suggesting that your typical 5 gram a day creatine dose doesn't seem to really move the needle with brain creatine levels, and you usually need to go up to like 10, 15,
10,
20 grams
20,
a day.
yeah.
So, and even then, the relative change in brain creatine levels is much more modest, even at 20 grams a day compared to what we see in muscle. Now, I'm looking at these dosages, and we're talking 750 milligrams a day, 0.75, or for the ethyl ester group, zero point 0.8. There was the one, quote unquote, they call it a medium dose group, which is 1.5 grams a day. So we're talking like a tenth to a 20th of what is usually used to increase brain creatine levels. There has not, to my knowledge, been compelling evidence to suggest that creatine hydrochloride or ethyl ester meaningfully differ from monohydrate in terms of bioavailability or absorption. And even I was looking at the clinical outcome, or the blood chemistry outcomes, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it said that there was, give me 1 second, yeah, clinical chemistry. It said there were no significant changes observed, I believe, in circulating creatine or creatinine levels over the course of the study, which is highly unusual. Usually if we give someone, 5 grams of creatine, we're going to see elevations in, at least creatinine levels just from the breakdown. So, Lauren, what do you make of this? Talk me into understanding that there are allegedly these, meaningful elevations in brain creatine with these tiny doses that don't even seem to be elevating blood creatine and creatinine.
I have my very do you want the most charitable view that I can come up with?
Let's make the most charitable, least legally actionable interpretation.
It's very I don't want to knock an industry funded study for the sake of knocking an industry funded study. There are industry funded studies that are not necessarily biased and that are well done. However, it is a little bit difficult to overlook the disclosure statement of the senior author, who serves as a member of the Scientific Advisory Board on Creatine in Health and Medicine, co-owns the patent Supplements Based on Liquid Creatine, and patent application Composition Comprising Creatine for Use in Telomere Lengthening. So this person is really all in on creatine. I also think when we're looking at these outcomes, I don't put much stock the the brain levels because, as I said, they only measured it in 4 people per group. It doesn't seem like they were able to report any sort of test retest reliability in that measure. Then they mention, the variability in the participants, right? So you have people who are perimenopausal and people who are postmenopausal, and they're trying to throw in the kind of presence of menopause symptoms to try to get some self-report data on the efficacy of supplementation on these symptoms. But it's very unclear how many people were experiencing symptoms, and if so, which, and how were they therefore allocated to a per group? Was that taken into account? They don't mention that. And there is a very broad range of weights here, body weight, not weighted bras. So body mass ranged in the sample from 48.9 to 87.6 kilograms. So if you think about the dosing here, many other studies have done dose by weight
Yeah.
to try to really standardize that. They didn't, which, may or may not be a big deal. However, if you think about if it is a big deal, then I would want to make sure that we didn't have one group where everyone was substantially lighter weight than another group. And so it didn't seem like they were pair matched at baseline before the randomization. And that's a wide range of body mass. So I'm not really sure what to make of the design and the number of outcome measures here. I struggle kind of putting any stock in these participant reported symptoms. I struggle making sense of the brain measures. And then when we look at the cognitive function tests, they did an attention network test, a symbol digit modalities test, and a Stroop color and word test. And then they ran a statistical comparison for, 6 to 9 kind of subcategories. And they found a couple of things, but given the study design and all of these outcomes, I feel like coming to the conclusion that yes, it improves cognitive outcomes and brain creatine levels is it's a very optimistic view of this data set.
Yeah, and I need to swoop in here with a clarification, but not a retraction, and definitely not an apology. Okay? So I'm looking back at that statement. It said, no significant changes were observed in circulating creatine or creatinine levels over the course of the study. However, Friedman's two-way ANOVA by ranks revealed a significant interaction effect for serum creatine levels. I don't know what to make of that. No changes in creatine, but a significant interaction for creatine. I don't know. The way that was reported makes no sense to me. But
and why would you run that analysis when it's not a rank? You have
the Friedman test on ranks is done as a non-parametric alternative to ANOVA if you have reason to believe the normality assumption has been violated, but no one actually tests that the right way anyway. So we don't need to get in a whole can of worms on stats. Usually what will happen, so it says they decided to do rank-based non-parametric tests for data that are not normally distributed. Normally what you should do, in my opinion, is run the model parametrically, extract the residuals, and then see if those are normal, not the variables themselves. Also, they said they were doing this because of non-homogeneous variances. which there are some alternatives there, but it's not unusual. Let me put it that way. Not unusual at all to run Friedman's test as an alternative, but the way it's reported is not doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And by far, the most important thing, before I said a bunch of super boring stat stuff that no one cares about, Lauren, is the fact that, I mean, if you look at the creatine and creatinine levels in the control group and compare it to the creatine hydrochloride and ethyl ester group, like they're not even remotely different. There are some elevations in the low dose creatine and medium dose creatine hydrochloride groups, but it's hard to make sense of this. Like I said, normally if we want to, so far in the literature, if we've wanted to elevate brain creatine levels, we'd have to actually absolutely bury people in creatine powder, like 20 grams a day for week after week after week after week. So I'm just struggling to see how these tiny doses made a big difference. I mean, the discussion is oddly long for a creatine paper, and normally creatine paper discussions are like 3 short paragraphs. Like, we gave them creatine, it either worked or it didn't. What do you want me to do? So they're doing a whole lot of work in the discussion. I should, in the interest of fairness and objectivity, hear them out and actually read the doggone thing. All sorts of stuff in here. This is a long paragraph, Lauren, if you're looking at this paper, but all sorts of stuff about why they believe these elevations in brain creatine were observed. But I'm not going to lie, Lauren, I'm not sold yet, but I have to give the paper a fair shake. I got to read it in detail if I want to be fair. But yeah, I'm with you. It would take a lot based on all the factors you mentioned, sample sizes, dosing. It would take a lot to convince me that this is an adequate intervention for making meaningful changes in the brain. So time will tell. I think someone's going to review this in detail in the Mass Research Review. Is that true?
Mike he was going to review another paper, but I encouraged him to include this as well. And the other thing I would say is, even if this study were replicated with a larger sample, which it has to be in order for us to really have any confidence that it's doing anything. When we look back at the history of supplements that are very well studied, where at one point in time people were bullish on supplementing for a particular outcome, and then after a lot of data, that they either decided, this is terrible or useless. It happens. And so I caution people who are just reading this abstract and saying, oh, home run, all middle-aged and older women should be taking creatine. Because what do we even take away from that? Even if we say, what's the harm? Do you then take creatine hydrochloride and pay the extra money? What dose are you taking? And can we be confident that that this is actually worth investing in? And I just think people are jumping the gun. It's too early to make a practical recommendation. And this study was just not appropriate to serve as a vehicle for a practical recommendation.
I'm with you. People in the live chat are a bunch of sickos, honestly. We got people clamoring for a deep dive statistics episode. I've done that in many, many, many places. I don't know if it's ever going to happen here, but Google my name and Boring Statistics Podcast, and a few will show up. But we had a good question here. Someone said, did they clarify if it was creatine or just regular male creatine? And then, was the creatine controlled by the various race and demographic variables that we know need to be accounted for in all programming? And honestly, sexual orientation, there's a lot, hair color. We know that these things matter in our fitness interventions. So I think it's a good point. They might have accidentally given them male creatine, which wouldn't work in a female. No. And it's very possible there could have been brunettes, redheads, blondes, the whole mixture in these various groups. So we may never know, Lauren.
I mean, gingers are so underrepresented in the literature, and I'm just outraged.
Especially the creatine literature.
Yeah.
But No, it's a good question from the live chat. And folks, I appreciate so much the good people showing up in the live chat from all over the place. Someone from New York City, they mentioned that actually is where the New York Post comes from, which is pretty cool. A little brush with fame there. I think someone mentioned that they were chiming in from, I mean, I know we had New Zealand, Germany. I could have sworn, yeah, we got people from all over the place. So thanks so much for making the live chat an international affair. Lauren, we need to catch up a little bit with some stuff from our dear listeners. Someone called me out. Christopher said I badly missed on my discussion of Little Debbie snacks and what's the other one? Hostess, the rival company. It's like a East Coast, West Coast wrap kind of thing. You've got Little Debbie's and Hostess. Honestly, a lot more violent, the disputes between Little Debbie and Hostess, unfortunately. But they mentioned that I missed out on Pumpkin Delights, which honestly I was not aware of. I don't know if this is a newish thing. The logo of Little Debbie makes it such that every single product they have looks like it came from 1921. It's a very, I love the way they do that. But I'm gonna put this up on the screen, folks. If you want to get some Pumpkin Delights, not a sponsor of the show, absolutely could be and should be. 8 cookies per pack. They look like smiling little jack-o'-lanterns with some kind of mystery syrup or caramel concoction making the eyes and the mouth. Presumably, if you take the correct amount of fat and carb blockers, this is essentially a 0-calorie meal. Why not eat all 8 of them? Ignore that advice if you have diabetes. Yeah, what could go wrong with another Little Debbie snack? So thanks so much to Christopher. And then we got anything else good from the chat we should, or from the listeners we should address?
Yeah, well, we have Chris here, who's not Christopher. These are 2 different people.
Yeah.
And it looks to me like he's addressing us as doctors, snake, and hat. We have a snake emoji, which I get. Thank you. And a hat emoji. How come he was so much nicer to you?
Yeah. It reminds me of an old, I was listening to a comedy podcast and somebody was talking about how someone in their friend group had the nickname Jimmy the Hat. And they said, how'd they get that nickname? Like, he never wore a hat. And so that's how he got the nickname. So I guess I'm Eric the Hat now for the opposite reason. Always wearing a hat. And honestly, that is a harsh critique of me, a tough criticism. It makes me uncomfortable to get that kind of pointed feedback on my appearance. But if that's as nasty as the feedback gets for this show, then I'm comfortable keeping it there. So we'll all agree, me to the audience and all who may be listening, if you want, you can call me the hat guy. But that is as nasty and critical as the feedback is going to get. Fair?
Is that better than Dr. PhD?
Yes. Yeah, I think it is. And we'll just make fun of you for generally looking very angry and stern, having a snake tongue, flopping in your 15 minutes of shame. Anything else we should add to the list?
That's all that comes to mind this week, but there's always next week.
Yeah, it's a fluid situation, unfortunately. Now, we did get some feedback. Apparently, everyone wants to tell us all about urination. You sent me a video on Instagram of people just...
No, you're missing the link from Chris, though.
Okay.
He's dubbing this water maxing.
Okay, let me try to see if I can bring this up here.
Someone's drinking with their meal.
Do I need to play the...
They water down.
Oh, God. I'm having technology issues. Okay. Let me see if this will work here. Do you want me to actually play the audio and all that?
Can you?
I can, yeah. Let me try to turn it down to very loud. Here.
Someone's drinking with their meals, they water down enzymes in the stomach. And the stomach knows that, so digestion stops. All the fluid has to be got rid of, and then it has to go back to digesting the food. And isn't that an Aussie habit, drinking with the meals? Every time Michael and I go to a restaurant, the first question we're asked is what? What are you going to have to drink? And we always say, no, we've already drank. Oh, well, we'll just bring you water. Now, we let them, because otherwise they'll never leave us alone. We're such a fast society. People are busy, no time to drink, sit down to eat. Oh, haven't drunk. Is that right? We should stop drinking half an hour before the meal, and that means that we've got a nice acid environment, and then resume drinking 1.5 hours to 2 hours after the meal. If you sit to eat your meal well hydrated, you will not need to drink with your meals. In fact, at Misty Mountain Health Retreat, we don't serve water with the meals. And I have people say, I keep reaching for the water. I said, yeah, that's the habit. That's what we're going to look at on Saturday morning, rewiring that. And you can rewire your brain. Someone's drinking with their
just
meals.
Play the full video here. So it's all about drinking with meals.
And that you should absolutely not do it.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that you're all in on that. You're fully on board.
So I think her advice is, we should stop drinking a half hour before we eat, and then don't drink again for an hour and a half after. And that, it sounds very complicated, which is great because I love an unnecessarily complicated recommendation related to our health. I also wonder if you are consuming that breakfast burrito and then cutting your water, what kind of havoc is that wreaking on the system?
Oh, I mean, untold amounts of havoc, obviously. Here's my thing, though. So she says if you're hydrated, you don't need to drink when you're having a meal. Some guy, Mike Zordos, just joined in, and he's upset we're not talking about Taco Bell. So here's my thing. If you're like me, you're sitting down for a meal, and it is probably 2 nacho cheese gorditas, 1 chicken quesadilla, maybe throw some nachos in there. This is pre-vegetarian, obviously. But you get through 1 quesadilla and 2 nacho cheese gorditas and tell me you don't need a drink of water, okay? We're talking about, sodium maxing, as the kids would say, probably 11, 12 grams of sodium in that meal. And I'm not done yet. I haven't even touched the nachos. So I need a good 40 to 60 ounces of that Baja Blast, preferably Diet Baja Blast if I can get it. I can't believe they sell 0 sugar Baja Blast canned in the stores now. What a time to be alive. But anyway, if you're eating the kind of devastating meals I'm eating that have 7, 8, 12 grams of sodium, 12,000 milligrams of sodium, believe me, you better be water loading before, during, and after that meal. That's all I got to say.
Great.
All right. Anything else we want to hit from the listeners here? Oh, yes, of course. We got one from Lawrence. My goodness, Lauren, I think you were doing your awkward pause there because you didn't want me to find this in the notes. Lawrence has a question. So Lawrence says, question for Eric. My friend and I will be attending a college football game later this year. Longhorns versus Texas A&M in Austin, Texas. We want to suck the proverbial marrow out of this occasion, so looking for some guidance on how we can give ourselves the most authentic and enriching college football experience in Austin. So, and then just to win over my heart, all sorts of slander about Eric Helms after that. So I'm all in. So Lawrence, here's the thing about college football. It is the beautiful game, as they call it internationally. If you ever hear someone talk about the beautiful game, they're talking about college football. So what's cool about college football is the regionality and the unique traditions. Every university, every campus, every stadium is going to have its own totally unique set of traditions. And so the number one thing you can do is if you can find someone who went to Texas at Austin or is currently there, contact them and figure out what's the scoop on game day. Because basically every game day experience, you're gonna want to know, where is the place to tailgate? Tailgating is non-negotiable. You must. So tailgating is a big old outdoor party before the game where people are having snacks, having drinks maybe, talking smack. It's just a good time to congregate and get ready for the experience. So you want to find out, where's the place to tailgate? When do things really kick off? Of course, you're going to go to the game. You might want to Google around what are some of the in-stadium traditions. Is there some random stuff they do between the third and the fourth quarter? What's the big chant that they do? Is there some kind of song that they do that wins over the crowd? Like I know since Zordos is in the chat, I think Virginia Tech does a big thing with Enter Sandman in their stadium. all sorts of these traditions that no one even knows when they started or why. So you got to get with somebody who is familiar with the home team. You got to get there early for the tailgate. After the game, I'm sure, I mean, I've been to Austin, Texas. There's going to be good barbecue. There's going to be good Tex-Mex, and there's going to be a lot of partying after the game. So figure out not just what's the spot before the game, but what's the spot after the game. And believe me, I'm not a big drinker. If I drink more than 1.5 beers, I'm incapacitated for a month. I am ill. So I'm not telling you to go out and, have some kind of crazy, binge drinking situation, but you want to be there for the vibe, for the environment. So even if you're not a big partier per se, the party is part of the pageantry that makes it all work. So go enjoy it. It's going to be crazy. Texas versus Texas A&M is going to be a wild game with a lot of emotion. So I'm very jealous. That's going to be a really cool game, and I hope you have a fantastic time. Lauren, how do you feel?
If you get too drunk, you can recover the next day at Dave Asprey's biohacking palace.
That's true. And Lauren, do you have a specific favorite college football tradition?
I have one college football experience that stands out in my mind. I attended a wedding at Michigan State University, and the mascot was at the reception.
Sparty the Spartan?
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Look at you.
It was weird.
No, come on. What time of year was this?
Maybe July or August, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say if it was in the middle of the fall, that would have been unbelievable to get some FaceTime with Sparty during the football season.
Like he was there the wedding was literally at the university overlooking the football field.
Oh, that is cool. That is really cool. I would have had
These
a ball.
people were really into Michigan State.
I would say so. That's awesome. One thing I should mention, though, if you're going to be in Austin, Texas, two things you want to check out. Of course, everyone knows the Lyndon B. Johnson Presidential Library. Obviously, everyone knows that, and the Associated Museum. But the actual thing you should check out, which I've never seen, but I've heard is really cool, there's a Museum of Physical Culture there on the campus of the University of Texas at Austin. It's like the only place that I've ever heard of where you can do a PhD in physical culture and learn all about basically the origins of the strength and fitness world and industry and strength sport more broadly. So while you're there, be sure to check it out if you can squeeze it in. All right, Lauren, I think that does it for tonight. Anything you want to say to the good people before we go?
Keep your emails coming, frontpagefitnesspodcast@gmail.com. Do not email any more football-related content. I will not put it in the outline.
Unless you want to. If you want to, that is the only loophole, the only caveat. If you want to, then you may. Everyone, thanks so much for joining us. Make sure that you like, rate, subscribe, review, share it with a friend, recruit people to join the FPF Army and join the live chat every Monday night. Lauren, did you give them the email address itself, or did you just tell them how to email?
I did.
Okay,
Thanks
cool.
for listening to 50% of what I say.
I'm doing a lot. I've got all sorts of gadgets, blinking lights. I'm doing a lot over here on the technology side. You're having me play videos with audio. It's a multimedia experience. So, folks, thanks so much for joining us. Love having you, and we look forward to seeing you for another episode in exactly 7 days. Take care.